Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno. Welcome back to another Cherno live stream. How's everyone doing today? It's very cold, is how I'm doing. So I'm hoping, because I was not home the whole day, and sorry about not doing yesterday's stream as well. I had to reschedule it to today. So hopefully today we're going to get some nice work done. And also it was supposed to be in the morning yesterday, and then I was going to do it in the evening yesterday, and then anyway, it just ended up being in the evening today. So next week should be back to normal schedule. Hopefully you can see that, of course, on the Twitch schedule page. Okay, so what is pretty cool, I think, at the moment is that, I mean, we ended last stream by trying to basically figure out why our images inside Hazelnut, inside the editor, in the UI, were kind of not like, they're not being filtered, basically. They're showing up not smooth. They're showing up blocky. They're actually kind of showing up the way that they appear in the source asset, which was a surprise to me. I thought that it was doing some weird thing, but I'm probably not going to go over it again today. I mean, let me have a look at, let me just kind of show you, I guess, like where we're at with that. But yeah, it's not like, yeah, I was like breakpointing all this stuff. I haven't worked on anything since Monday, which is when the last stream was. But basically, like if you have a look at these icons over here, they're very like harsh. They're not very smooth. And then I think one other giveaway was like this stuff. So if you zoom in, you can see how it's kind of one bit. It's either present, which is the white, or it's not, which is like basically the background is showing the background behind this. And what's interesting is that the source asset, like as in this image file on disk, is exactly like this as well. However, in an older version of Hazel, well, the version of Hazel before we did this one, before, like for example, from the net branch, which is a different branch to the new renderer branch, so it doesn't include any of the new renderer stuff. So basically prior to the new renderer, it was not like that, and it was smooth. And to be honest, I don't really know why it was smooth, because again, the source data is not smooth. And obviously, like we've tried to play around with, let me just keep it as this. See, if you zoom in here, you can see that it's actually doing some filtering, like, or anti-aliasing or something to basically create more pixels than just, you know, on or off. So like a 1-bit kind of thing. It's actually doing some really nice filtering. And I'm not exactly sure why. Like, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can see them side by side here. Obviously, this looks a lot nicer than this. And I'm zooming in, so the quality's kind of dropping, obviously. But you can see that, yeah, that's like the difference that we're dealing with. So I don't really know why. And we've tried to inspect this through like Nsight, for example. You know, one thing we haven't actually tried is substituting this with like a different image and then scaling that up. So like, because these icons, the interesting thing about this is that these, I believe, are 512 by 512, but they're being displayed at a smaller size. I don't know why we don't have this cog here. There's a cog here. You can see it over here in the old version of Hazel, but it's not rendering for some reason here. So we've got like some weird rendering errors. Anyway, so the cog was here. If we click on this, we can, it's still there, still clickable. We can scale this up to 512, which I believe is the native size. So if we have a look, this is the native size of the image. So it's actually doing minification, not magnification. But again, both the minification and the magnification filters should be enabled, or at least, well, they're enabled in NVRHI, which means they're set to linear as far as Vulkan is concerned. So if I go up all the way to 512 here, yeah, I guess we get the same, do we get the same result? So you can see with the F, there's still some, and the N, there's still some like anti-aliasing going on basically. Whereas in this version, even at 512, you can see it's just like 1 bit. And I don't know, I explored the fact that because the thing is, it's not just, this is a PNG file, and it's not, as far as I'm aware, I might be wrong, I'll probably have to double check this just to be 100% certain, but it's not just like white and gray, 2 colors. It's actually white or nothing. So this is transparent. So it's, you can see it's kind of, it's the same color as this in the background. And it's not like that in the image file. It's actually transparent. So that's why I was thinking maybe it's a blending thing. You know, maybe it's trying to do that anti-aliasing, but like it's doing the filtering, but when it comes to blending it, you know, it can't blend it or something, or it's like using the I don't know, something's going wrong. But and to be honest, that like still is kind of plausible to me, because if you look at this, it looks fat, doesn't it? The N, you can see it starts off thin, like this is thin, and then it kind of grows fatter, and then it goes, I don't know if it goes thinner here, not really, but it starts off thinner and then it grows fatter. And if you have a look at this, you can see that the actual area that's solid gray is the same size. It's the kind of extra colors in between that I think are all just permanently not blend, like they're just gray here, fully gray. So they're still present, those pixels. It's not like it's adding extra pixels here that aren't there. So I don't know, my theory is still the fact that I don't know if it's filtering per se. You know what, but the thing is we can check. Like, and what's funny, by the way, is I basically started this stream being like, but we're gonna ignore all of this stuff and move on. But now that I'm explaining it to you guys, I kind of want to solve it, you know? So maybe so let's do this, yeah? So this is we just happen to have sound configs here, right? And these are just like sound configuration files. It doesn't matter, it's just like an asset type. But the point is this specific, you know, like image is obviously rendering here. So let me just close this and I'll keep other Hazel over here. So if we have a look at what that is, so editor resources will have it. It's like the sound config file that I think we looked at. So what do we have here? Yeah, sound config. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open this up and I'm gonna test out, because I can definitely narrow down. And again, we did look at this through RenderDoc, which was really weird, like didn't really work properly for whatever reason. I don't know if that's a Hazel problem or if there's a RenderDoc problem. But then we used NVRHI, and that seemed to show us the fact that, yeah, like both blending and linear filtering was enabled as far as I'm aware. Actually, I'm not sure if it told us that linear filtering was enabled because there was something with the samplers that we also had to play with. Yeah, this whole thing is like, it's very tricky, but we don't even have that shader here. I'll show you what I mean. So in the actual shader that we're using inside with imgui to render this, so this is the shader, right? So you can see, like, I switched this over to being a combined image sampler in S0 and T0. Now, because we're using Vulkan, this S and T doesn't really mean anything. This is more for DirectX or Direct 3D. But, and usually like in Vulkan, this is written in HLSL, but in GLSL, you would just have like something called a sampler 2D, and that would be it, right? So, and that's a combined image sampler. So the way that in DirectX, you separate them. And so the way that you mentioned, but in Vulkan, I want them to be the same thing, is you put them both in register 0 here. Doesn't matter that they're different types, they're still kind of in register 0, and then like the shader compiler or whatever knows that, like, okay, well that's like, it's going to be a combined image sampler. I'll spit out that SPIR-V bytecode or whatever for that. So linear on both mag and min, yeah, well, yeah, that's what we're setting it to. So that's what it should be set to. But anyway, so yeah, we had to play around with this, but even with this set up this way, for some reason NVRHI, RenderDoc was just saying that we don't have a sampler, which is a bit weird. I think NVRHI was telling us that, like, either we do, I don't know, it didn't really come up with anything, but like RenderDoc, I remember, I might be just forgetting about NVRHI, but RenderDoc specifically was like, it was like red, and it was like for the sampler, and it was like, it's not there, which is weird, because again, it seems like it should be there. And also if it wasn't there, I'm not even sure if we'd see anything, you know? So anyway, regardless, the point is that we need to verify somehow whether or not this is working. And I was just using, like, again, debugging tools, and also trying to look at, you know, what the C++ code is basically doing, how it's setting up everything. But another thing we could do is obviously go into the actual asset here. So we have like icons, and then we have like this, sorry, it's in content browser. we have the sound config over here, right? So if I just open Photoshop, and I guess I'll just, I don't really have to back it up because we have, you know, Git. But if I look at this inside here, right? And yeah, we were even like looking at all the different channels, and you can see, by the way, here that it's exactly what I said, right? It's basically either I've just made it pink by only keeping the red and blue channel here, but just because it's easier to see than white. But you can see it's either there or it's not, right? It's just like, it's basically one bit, but it is encoded as a proper, I think, RGB or RGBA image. So it's definitely got that alpha channel there properly because that's how we're rendering it as far as I'm aware. So what I want to do is something different here. I'm going to make the canvas size, I'm going to get an image from the internet. What should I get an image of? I guess we can just get the Cherno logo, which it's funny that I'm Googling the Cherno logo, but I've got the Cherno logo here. I just Googled Cherno logo and I'm copying it. I'm going to make this 64 or something. I definitely screwed that up. 64 by 64. And then I don't care about this. We'll just paste in. Do not copy that. Copy image, paste. Great. Okay, I have to make a layer for it. And I'm just going to minify this, right? I guess that's not the best test though, because that's doing, oh no, here's what I'll do. I'll minify it, but I'll set it to nearest. It's already too late, isn't it? I mean, this itself is not, because I just want this to be super, I mean, I could just draw a line, to be honest. That's probably not, that's fine, probably. I wonder if I can, this is getting a little bit too silly, but I wonder if I can really crush the color channels here. Nah, that's, it doesn't matter. Okay. Whatever, we've got some, you know, anti-aliasing here, but the anti-aliasing is not too much of a bother, probably. But I'm still gonna make this a little bit more solid. Oh, I guess what I could do is I could just use either quick selection or the object selection to just select that and then nuke it with a solid color, right? It'd be good if we could just fill it. What's that mode that just fills it? Ah, maybe this. No, because it's not filling that area. Okay, actually, you know what I can do as well? Maybe I can select, what is going on? I'll select everything. Maybe I can just do this, since it's being annoying. Okay, you know what? This doesn't matter. It's good enough. Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I'll save it. So I'll save it. We'll call it, we'll just replace sound config, and I guess we'll keep it as a PNG. Whoops, because it was a PNG, right? Yes. So basically, the idea is I've made it much smaller, right? I've made it 64 by 64 now. It shouldn't matter, but obviously I'm going to render it more than 64. So the idea is if it still looks like this, meaning that when we scale it up, it looks like this, where it's not smooth. I mean, yeah, we do have some smoothing here, but not much, right? Then we know that it's not filtering, right? So let's make this max and then let's have a look. All right, well, that looks like it's not filtering. Huh. Isn't that interesting? Because now I'm rendering it at 512 and it's a 64-bit source image, and it looks identical to this. So it's not actually doing any filtering. Isn't that interesting? Look, it's the same. Can get a little screenshot of it. What happened here? Oh, it's very big. Why is it this big? Damn. Anyway, that's obviously redoing it. But anyway, there you go. So looks like filtering isn't working, which is a bit annoying. And another way we could have tested this, by the way, for those of you watching at home who are like, why did Cherno spend half an hour on his own logo? Is we could have just literally gotten like a line and just drawn like a line. So if I set the stroke, I guess do we need a stroke? Or is that's gonna be on the outside? But then again, I need to make sure it's not aliasing it. Oh, okay. Well, this is probably what I would maybe do. So if you use the pencil tool, because I don't know, this is gonna make it all smooth. And I don't know how we can disable that easily because I'm not a Photoshop expert. But if we get the pencil tool, the cool thing about the pencil tool is that it just draws like pixels, right? So, and we don't need like smoothing or anything, which I think will just make this, yeah, be smooth. Whoops. So, no, that's not what I wanted. And then I think we can make it bigger. Yeah, we can. So if I just draw like a line like this, then if I had just done that, that would have obviously been good enough. So I'll replace the sound config. We'll restart Hazel. Yeah, and then you can see here that, like, especially as I make it bigger, there's absolutely no extra pixels being added. And again, I guess this theoretically could be a blending thing, potentially, but the thing that stops it from being that is if we actually add a background. So we had a background on the Cherno logo, but if I add a white background specifically, right, then obviously now it's not doing any blending. It's just scaling the image up, which I can show you what that's supposed to look like as well. So there you go. See, that's absolutely wrong, like as in it's not filtering. Whereas what we would have expected to see is if I make a new canvas here that's 512 by 512, which is the resolution at which that was being rendered, and then I, you know, copy like this or whatever, and then I take my, this thing, and I scale it up, but I set this to like bilinear, and I scale it up, then when I hit enter, you can see what it's done, right? It's completely made it smooth around the edges. So that is what we would have, something like this, probably a different filtering algorithm, but something like this is what we would have expected to see instead of nearest filtering or point filtering, which is what we're seeing. So now we can basically be certain that it's not the blending or anything, it is specifically the sampler that is somehow not working, which is completely beyond me as to why that is, because we know that in the imgui renderer, which is, let me bring that over here. In the imgui renderer, we only have one sampler that we ever use, right? The way that we render images is it comes to this draw state bindings situation before it renders, which effectively translates to like VK command set descriptor sets or something. And then we're getting the binding set from here, which is gonna cache, but otherwise if it doesn't cache, you can see how it creates it. So again, using NVRHI, but the point is it's got like inside like the binding, inside the descriptor set layout or whatever, it's got three things. It's got the push constants, it's got the actual texture itself, and it's got the sampler. And you can see that sampler's in slot 0, just like it's supposed to be, as well as the texture. They're both in binding 0, and it's using the font sampler. And the font sampler is created over here, and you can see set all filters is true. And what set all filters true does is if we go down into the Vulkan texture file over here, then you can see that basically, well, first of all, set all filters true means min filter equals mag filter equals mip filter equals enable, right? So if this is true, which it is, then all of these three are all set to true. And that means inside Vulkan texture that you can see if that mag filter, for example, is on, then it uses VK filter linear, right? If min filter is on, it uses linear for the minification filter. And then if mip filter is used, then it's also setting like the sampler map mode to linear. Now, I mean, like, we don't have MIPs, but I don't think a linear filter between MIPs is gonna really cause any issue. So yeah, that's basically the story. It should be all set to linear. However, it doesn't look like it is. Or at least, I don't know, unless something else is weird, but I don't, like, this looks pretty standard. Min and max LODs are set. That's the wrapping mode. Anisotropy, like, I don't know, that shouldn't affect this at all. The compare enable and the compare operators, I don't really know too much about, but it's either going to be true or false depending on what the reduction type is, which I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. But either way, like, I don't think this should affect anything. I think it should just be as simple as setting it to linear, which you can see it is setting. And this is Vulkan. This is just Vulkan .hpp. It's like the C++ kind of version of Vulkan, which is what NVRHI uses. But it's the same. It's like, this is Vulkan. So yeah, very strange. I mean, obviously I could investigate a little bit more, like as in I could make sure that it's actually getting there. So if I set this back to debug, which unfortunately is going to take a little bit of time. Doesn't nearest filtering look better? Well, with the line, yes, but not with icons, not with the rest of the images in the UI. We definitely want filtering for those. Yeah, it's a little bit strange, like, you know, in terms of, this like is fascinating. I also don't like, I mean, look, half of it to me feels like almost because of our shader pipeline or something. Like I'm not so sure that this sampler is reaching the shader. I think it's fine. I think it's just because this is written, you know, one thing I might try, honestly, if this doesn't work, is I might rewrite this shader in GLSL. Because that's going to eliminate this weirdness, which again is weird because it works elsewhere in the engine. Like, for example, GTAO also uses combined image samplers, and like we use this kind of language and whatever. I mean, here it's a little bit different. It specifies like the type of texture, but I don't think that's required, or at least like it shouldn't be. Okay, anyway, so we're in debug now. Did I not put a breakpoint here? What? Why did it not hit my breakpoint? This definitely would have had to run. This is what loads the shaders. What the heck? How did this not? How did that not hit my breakpoint? What on earth? Where does init get called from? Probably from imgui layer. So it happens over here. That is really, really strange. I'm not sure how it didn't hit my breakpoint, unless I've got like debugging. Unless I've got like debugging set to the wrong mode. It's very strange. Like, look, it's not hitting my breakpoint, but it says it's a valid breakpoint. What? That's impossible. Something's wrong with the debugger. Because we're obviously doing all of this stuff, this rendering, none of this rendering would work if the debugger was not initialized. Sorry, if the renderer was not. But look, this is being hit. Dude, this is strange. So the debugging is working because this is being hit. That's so weird. What the heck? I don't even know what to do about this. I mean, let me quickly check. I mean, debugging set to mixed. Let's set the debugging to native only, because that can cause issues. But that's really, really strange. I have 2 init paths. No, I don't. As if. It's just one function. So where does this go? Yeah, here, look, see? Okay, so I think it was the, oh no, I removed that breakpoint. Okay, now it should hit the breakpoint. I think it was the debugging, the debugger type was set to mixed, which is sometimes not, Visual Studio's not happy with that. I'm assuming now it's gonna hit the, yeah, okay. Well, no, that's that one. So if I hit F5, yeah, okay, it does hit this now. Okay, cool. So if we have a look at this, I guess we can step in to there. So let's go into the indirect call. Yeah, so they are set to true. This is set to wrap. Emit bias is 0, anisotropy is disabled, which again shouldn't be a problem. Reduction type is standard. I mean, I don't know, like this looks fine to me. And then it creates a sampler with that sampler info, which you can see is linear. Wait, why is this repeat? Didn't we set it to wrap? Or actually, I think it was set to repeat. Well, no, this says wrap. What? Why is this on repeat? Let's have a look at this like weirdo convert. Can I go here, please? Let's look at this weird function. Mode is wrap, and it jumps to repeat. Because wrap is, the heck? Wrap is 1. Oh, sorry, I'm an idiot. Wrap and repeat are the same thing. I'm an idiot. For some reason I thought I'm just cooked, that's all. I just thought wrap was clamp. I was reading it wrong. Like my brain was fuzzing it. Okay, cool, that's fine. So we are creating the sampler, and of course we're using that same sampler. So again, everything is fine. So I don't know what to say, guys. I don't know what to say. I think I'm gonna try and rewrite that shader in GLSL. At least that will rule that out, because this is, again, very strange. So, and it's a very short shader, so this should take me like 2 minutes. Let's change this to imgui.glsl. Get rid of all this comment stuff. I think this can stay the same. And then we're just going to, basically translate it. So let's see. Layout, location. Is it location? I think it's 0 in. So we'll do vec2. I'll write it kind of in my convention. Vec4. So we got text chord and color. So that replaces this. 1, 2. We've got this push constant buffer, which let me look at some other file for that, like maybe the skybox. Does that have push constants? Yep. So we'll call them uniforms. Well, they're constants, scale, and translate. So that out goes this stuff. That looks good. That looks good. This. I forgot how to make this a struct for the output. Actually, we can look at the PBR shader for that. Yeah, you just do it like that. So we'll do vertex output, and then it's just these three. So vec. Position, color, and text chord. And we got the output there. So this is now like that. The input is just a color, a text chord, a position. Now the push constants are the uniforms. Vector. Don't need that. Oh, we got to set the GL position as well to just output dot position. Oh, we don't need output dot position. Sorry. So what do we actually need here? Just the color. Yeah, it's just the color. Oh no, and the UV. So we won't output the position, and then this will just be. I guess I can just write to GL position directly with like that. And then we'll set that. Output color and text chord. Then we'll have that struct. That's gone. We'll have this. Except it'll be in. Okay, so this is now layout binding equals 0, sampler 2D, U texture, we'll call it. So, and then all we do is we do vec for, we can just do return texture, U texture, and input dot color. So we don't actually, we don't need that. Oh, we do because we multiply it. We need that color. So we'll do times input dot color, and that's it. And then this is a void like that. Okay, does that look right, everyone? Class, is this correct? Have I made any blunders? I don't know if you can, I'm assuming you can write to GL position like this normally. I mean, to be honest, we don't have to do it this way, like we could, but it's fine. I'm sure the swizzling should still work. And everything else looks pretty valid. So, yeah, one thing I'm wondering about is, now that we've written it that way, I am curious about how, because it used to be two different things, now it's one, but we still set it as two different things in here, right? So when we do the get binding set, we can see we still set them as two different things, and I guess I'm kind of wondering how it sorts this out on the Vulkan backend. So we may have to have a look at this. But anyway, let's see if that shader compiles and we'll see if it works. So where do I actually get the shader? So it's the imgui shader. So if we just go to renderer.cbp, we can search for imgui. We can just change this to GLSL and that should be it. And then it's the first shader. So if it doesn't compile, we'll know very quickly. Doesn't texture take UVs? I gave it UVs, didn't I? Invalid version. Oh, we need to set a version. I gave it UVs, I think. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't. Texture and input color is what I gave it. I meant to type text chord. Yeah, we need a version number. Apparently we set it before the stage, which is a bit weird. Let's try that. Okay, binding requires, oh yeah, uniform. And sampler 2D can, yeah, I think I forgot. Is it uniform sampler 2D? And oh, return. Sorry, it's not return. So we have layout location equals 0 out vec4 or color for the output color. Like that. Okay, that looks better. All right, well that didn't work. And also, it's still not filtered. But it's upside down. Why is it suddenly upside down? Isn't that weird? Just changing from GLSL to HLSL. Sorry, from HLSL to GLSL made it upside down. I mean, it's not well, not really doing anything differently. Like the push constants didn't change. That's the thing that sets it. That is so weird. Why would that have changed at all? That's so weird. Okay, I mean, if we go to, let me just set this to release. It's so strange. imgui renderer. So if we, I mean, these should be correct because the name doesn't matter. It's just about the, so we got the offset there. So that should be fine. And then the push constant though, it's 2 vec2s, but where do we set them? Over here somewhere. Here, I think. Push constants. Let's set this to like negative or something. Let's have a, I don't know, it's strange that, it's very strange that it's upside down. I mean, the other things we did that too. Oh wow, that's off the screen. I guess I can reload the shader, but the UI is a bit harsh. So if we have a look at this, and it's flipped, right? This just moves it, but it does multiply it by the scale. But that's just to get it small. Yeah, we could try that. But it gets multiplied with that again. But anyway, I don't know if this is worth pursuing because obviously I'm happy with the HLSL shader. It's just that it was, I guess I just wanted to test out this whole theory and we're still getting this. So therefore, I don't think we need to keep doing this. Like it's probably fine. So I'm happy to go back to HLSL because that was the OG one, but it doesn't matter, to be honest. Any shader is fine. It's just interesting that we have to flip all this stuff in that case. Let's just try flipping it like that quickly. Yeah, I mean, it's still, yeah, not at all correct. Like, as in, it's still not linear filtered. So I'm beginning to think that the sampler never actually reaches the shader or something. I don't know. Okay, so let's do this. Let's have a look, probably back in debug, at how exactly this gets created, this binding set, because that's a bit strange. And then, I don't know, like, what would I do? Look at RenderDoc again or something. I mean, remember, RenderDoc is really weird with, it says that all of our images are broken or something. All of our textures. Okay, so here's the binding set being created. Okay, so we've got allocate descriptor sets. Yeah, so I'm interested in what the descriptor image info obviously gets set to. So if we have a look at this, so this function, okay, so if it's yeah, that's a good point actually. Like, for example, what the heck could it do with sampler? Sampler, here it is. So what does it do? It places an image info back and sets the sampler. But the problem is that doesn't it need it when it does texture UAV or SRV? Which one is it using? SRV. So texture SRV, oh well, yeah, but it doesn't matter, that's type buffer. UAV SRV, which is the correct one, because this is basically an image in the general layout, but this is in shader rate only optimal, which is correct. Doesn't this need a sampler? Like, what is the image info here? There's no sampler, it's null. So I don't really know how this would work. I mean, it kind of sets it later, so you can see that like sampler is null here, right? But sampler is null here, but apparently it obviously kind of sets it later here by placing another image info that only has a sampler. So this I've never really heard of, but I'm guessing it should like combine it though, because it's obviously going into binding. What is the binding location actually? Register offset plus whoa, what? What is register offset? Dude, what is going on? So shader resource 0, sampler 128, constant buffer 256, unordered access 384. What? This is a little bit weird. Like, I don't really understand how this works exactly. Because, the binding location, I would have thought, would have to have been 0, but it's 128 because it offsets it by 128. But why? Or is that just the way that NVRHI tries to deal with stuff like this? And that doesn't make sense though. That's really weird. But it's probably the issue. Well, I mean, I don't know. Unless this is some weird... But, like, as far as I'm aware, this wouldn't really work. This is super weird. Oh, well, see, this is special compile time settings for HLSL to SPIR-V register allocation. Because, see, the difference is that, like, you know, HLSL, when you have, like, various things, like, you'll have a texture which has T0, or T1, or T2, like, that's the register. It's actually got the letter T in it. And, like, with sampler, for example, it was S0 or S1, so it's actually got that, like, letter in it. GLSL doesn't do this, so I'm guessing what maybe this is a way to make that work by just saying that, okay, well, if you want the equivalent here, you're gonna have to basically, you know, since you can basically have something at T0 and S0, in GLSL this doesn't make sense because they're both at 0. So I think the way it deals with it is it just says, okay, well, stuff with T, being a shader resource, is just gonna start at 0 to 127 inclusive. And then, like, S is going to occupy 128 to 255. I'm guessing. But I just don't understand how that would really work unless we specifically separated the sampler. Well, to be honest though, that does mean that it should probably have worked for the HLSL, maybe without combined image sampler, because we originally we didn't have the combined image sampler, that was not here, and we just had the sampler in S0, which should be 128, and then the texture in T0, which should have been 0, apparently. However, it didn't work, I don't think. So, I don't know. What we could try, I mean, let's just try get rid of, I mean, this is not going to work because this is why we started doing this in the first place, but let's try get rid of that combined image sampler thing. And then I'm going to come over here to the renderer and just switch back to the HLSL. And then we can have a look at that. But again, I suspect this will give us the same result and not actually use the sampler. Another way we could verify if the sampler is working is change some other aspect of it. So like we could change the texture coordinates and then change the wrap mode between clamp and wrap, or clamp and repeat, because that would show us whether or not it's working as well, whether or not it's actually able to communicate with that specific sampler. Well, yeah, see, it's not working. Because this is what we originally had it with, I think. So basically, in I don't know exactly how this works, but I'm pretty sure this is apparently supposed to, according to them, translate to layout binding 0 and binding 128 is how that works. And so therefore it sets it correctly. But It doesn't seem to be working. Okay, well, let's check that other thing that I said. I don't really know. This is like, I'm just stabbing stuff in the dark here. So what I'll do is this. I will go to here and I will, instead of wrap, oh, actually, let's keep it on wrap, right? We'll go between wrap and clamp. So what I'll do is I'll just simply go to the GLSL and I'll just multiply the UV by 2. That's the HLSL. But anyway, I'm going to the shader. I'm just going to multiply the UV by 2. So that's obviously going to, like, I should see 4 lines. And if I see 4 lines, then that's fine. I'll change the wrap mode to clamp. And then if I see still 1 line, but it's in like the top left or bottom left or whatever, then I know that the sampler is actually being read by the shader. And I guess it's just refusing to filter for whatever reason. Okay, well, there you go. It's, that's working, but again, it could be like something else. So we're gonna go to this specific sampler, yeah, and we're gonna change it to clamp. And now I should only see 1 line / folder. No, we're in debug. That's a blunder. Because it's taking longer to open for no reason. This is very annoying. This whole thing. Oh, well, there you go. There's our proof. It's not reading the sampler. The sampler is not working. I wonder if we need to compile the HLSL like with anything specific, because Hazel's shader compiler is compiling the HLSL, right? Don't really know. I think it's like this. This is how we're compiling it. So the thing is, we can actually ask it what it's got the reflection data that basically tells it. We could have a look. Okay, we can do a couple things. We can have a look at how Donut / NVIDIA's things actually end up compiling the HLSL into SPIR-V. That's step 1. Step 2, or like rather variant 2, would be to just have a look at Hazel and ask Hazel, hey, where's my sampler at? Like, what are the resources available in this shader? Which it will do because it will like process the shader basically. So, because once it does this, it'll compile it, you can see, using the DirectX like shader compiler, DXC. And so I'm wondering what it ends up thinking, where it ends up thinking, like what binding or what location, what's a binding, it actually ends up in. So if we have a look at where compile is called, probably compile or get Vulkan binary. What it's supposed to do is, yeah, so the reflection data, I'm interested in that, I guess. Try read reflection data, because this, I guess, yeah, I guess let's just, it should be the first shader. So I should be able to put a breakpoint here, and we should actually be able to see in the reflection data what where it thinks that image sampler is. Because image samplers is separate, as you can see, from, oh, well, there's separate samplers and there's image samplers. And I feel like image samplers is combined image samplers, which means they're actually textures as well. Also, I don't think we're hitting that breakpoint for some reason, which is very strange. What? How do we miss this breakpoint? We should have this reflection data somewhere. Reflect all shader stages. I mean, let's just have a look at this and see what happens here. Yeah, that was quick. Okay, so what happens? So we get into reflect all shader stages apparently. And then reflect. Oh, maybe the reflections out. No, that should be a thing in the editor. That's weird. Okay, so we got no uniform buffers, we got no storage buffers, we got push constants. Just skip those. We got sampled images. We don't have sampled images. Separate images, separate samplers. It's not going into any of these. Wait, is this the imgui shader? It should be. This is the imgui shader. But this doesn't make sense. It's saying it's got no data. Huh. But oh, that was the vertex shader. Okay, so let's go in here. So that's the vertex shader. This is the fragment shader. Sampled images, no. Separate images, yes. So it does have separate images. And what does it say here? Texture 0 is the name. And what's the binding? The binding is 0. So we expect that, I think. And then separate samplers, right? Is probably it'll hit that, and it does. And so what's the binding? 0. But does it expect this? Like, does it want this to be 128 somehow? That's so strange. I have tried with VK binding as well. What I could do to make this happy though, actually, is this. Maybe that would work. If I do, so VK binding, and then for the sampler, I could set it to 128, and for the texture, I could set it to 0, right? Maybe that would change things. So if I have a look at separate samplers, and I have a look at the binding that it thinks it's at, with that in mind, then we can have a look. Yeah, see, now it's 128. So what if this works? Do you guys think this will work? The suspense as it opens. I wonder if 0 would have just worked though. Or I think that did work. Look, we only see 1. Oh, guys, it's linear filtered. We did it. That is the stupidest thing in the world. That's all thanks to NVRHI. Oh, I would have never picked up on that if I didn't step through this and discovered that apparently they have these weirdo offsets. Get register offset for resource type, and it's set to 128 for samplers. That's so interesting. Okay, here's what I want to try. So first of all, let's go back to rendering this like a normal person. So if we go to imgui renderer, and we change this back to wrap, and then we go to the shader, the HLSL that we're compiling, and we change this to not be ×2. Now let's just run this in release. You also don't need the register stuff now. Well, I might need it for HLSL. I will need it for HLSL. For DirectX. Okay, well there you go. This looks much better now. Actually, does it? This is like all faded, weirdly. Okay, so, and these icons are weird as well. Actually, all the icons are gone. That's weird. This is here though, and this looks nice. So what's happened? Why are like all the icons missing? Like the folder icon's not rendering. Is that somehow different? It shouldn't be. And this is faded. What is going on? Half of the images aren't rendering. Okay, we gotta work that out. But what I'm curious about is if I remove this stuff, yeah. But I don't know if this will work. But I just set this to 0. Will that work? Because it didn't seem like it needed to be in a separate binding. Or maybe with this, but then I combine it. Maybe I combine it into, like I have to specify it's a VK combined image sampler, which I'll do next if this doesn't work. So this is what I want. Because this is bizarre. So this is, oops. That's what I want. So I haven't saved this yet. I don't know why is it recompiling everything? I guess that was in the NVRHI header. That's why. Unfortunately. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try combined image sampler now. And that also didn't work. Definitely compile the shader, right? Huh. Okay, so then the solution is to have it at 128 and 0, apparently, and then keep this at 128. Interesting. But it's weird because, like, why would that have not worked, though, to be real? And I shouldn't change it here. I can just change it in, I can just change it in... But it's probably, the thing is, it's probably not valid to have both things at binding 0, though, is it? Anyway, I should have just changed it, here, like, in the CPP file. In what was it, create binding set, because this has, when it does the actual sampler, which is here, I could have just gotten rid of this register offset. This is very strange. Not a fan. Not a fan of this weird offset. I mean, I kind of get it though, maybe, because otherwise, how does it work? But it's weird that it doesn't kind of happen automatically, so that's fine. But then if I get rid of register offset, and then we go back to either, yeah, I guess I can go, I'll try go back to combined image sampler. Just want to do one more little check for my sanity. Okay, that actually doesn't work. Okay, what about if I put them both at binding 0? And having nothing there didn't work either, by the way. So it looks quite, yeah, it just doesn't work. Okay, so it needs to be apparently at 0 and 128. Possibly because there's like a conflict or something, and then we have to do register offset. That's weird, it's really weird. But what's also weird is I can't seem to get it to work with GLSL, which is worrying, because how are the rest of the shaders gonna work? They're basically all combined image samplers. Okay, so why is that wrong? Wait, yeah, why is that wrong? Did I go back to, I mean, I did go back to this. Huh. Oh, ×2. Okay, I'm really curious as to why the folders aren't showing up, because now obviously it seems to be using the correct sampler on account of our lines being smooth. But what's weird is that we don't see the folder icon anymore. And like various other things are missing or weird, like the translate one's missing. Why would that be? Okay, so now let's do this. Let's open up RenderDoc. Now that we've actually fixed our sampler, we're definitely getting our sampler into our shader. I want to open up RenderDoc. We're going to launch it. Now we're going to have a look. So let's capture a frame. Close this and we'll have a look. Okay, so it still says it's like undefined. So RenderDoc's still not happy for some reason with the images. I mean, maybe there is something wrong with the images. That's why they're like literally not, like they're not rendering, or they're being weird. They either render or they don't. Because it's saying that it's undefined. It's an undefined image. What if we're being weird without texture state? So most of these textures, I think they get, let's have a look at how they get loaded. Editor resources, load texture, goes into texture 2D create. So it's actually being created as a 2D texture. And then that texture, I don't know if we're not, I don't think we're making it a permanent resource as far as NVRHI is concerned. Or are we? I don't know. So we do invalidate, we set data, and it comes with image data. Here's a sampler being created, which we don't really end up using in this case. Why don't we just use the sampler from the texture, I wonder? I mean, by then it's already, it doesn't have it because it's not a Hazel texture, it's an NVRHI texture. We could make it a Hazel texture though. We probably should, because otherwise this isn't gonna work, but whatever, that's irrelevant. So when we do set data, the thing is we might want to do this multiple times. So I guess it probably shouldn't matter. So we do image set data, right? Which it's refusing to go to. Okay, so that does set the texture state to shader resource. And it also does begin tracking texture state. So this I'm a little iffy about as to like how NVRHI wants us to do this, because I'm pretty sure that like, so what this will do, this just saves, I think, the current texture state and tracks it for all sub resources. And then when we do set texture state, this should actually, but we never call commit though. Don't we need to do that? But also, Vulkan's not complaining. This is bizarre. Because it gets set to shader resource, right? Which, first of all, let's have a look at whether or not, where is that? Vulkan resource bindings. So what does this end up getting set to? Because inside image info, I'm pretty sure it's gonna have that, or at least it should, right? VK descriptor image info, image layout, undefined. So what are we, so what, it's just undefined? That doesn't make sense. That's really weird. Look, set image layout as being, oh, you're right, because the texture SRV. So image layout gets set to shader read only optimal, which is the same, I believe. Oh yeah, it doesn't even care. It just says, okay, I'm gonna set it to optimal, to read only optimal. I'm guessing UAV will be general, yep. So that's fine. That should be shader resource. I mean, it doesn't matter what it's set to here, but the point is we set the texture state to shader resource. This is important. But don't we have to like commit this or something? Because I don't know if it, and we could do permanent texture state, but that's cannot be modified. So the problem with this is that we probably don't ever want to do that, just because you can, well, we would have to discern in Hazel between textures that are permanent and like read only and textures that are not, and we currently don't do that. Any texture you can update the data of. So that's not the best in terms of performance, but it's obviously very flexible, and that's fine, kind of, for what we're doing so far. So that's why it's like that. But anyway, so we do begin that, and then, well, it says set texture state places the necessary barriers. And then if they're already in that state, then no action is performed. And if it was previously transitioned, yeah, that's fine. Oh wait, they're not immediately submitted, but replace and planning call commit barriers to submit them. But that's very weird. Okay, well, let's try that. I mean, I don't think that will, because again, I don't know. Like, Vulkan usually will yell at you if it's not in the right thing. So I'm very confused. But also, maybe when we go to use this, it will automatically commit barriers. I don't really know. Like, I'm just gonna try this, and we'll see if this makes any difference. No. And I'm fairly sure that this is where all the images are flowing through. But again, I think it's just worrying that we have undefined showing up in RenderDoc. In Nsight, it does show up, but I would like it to show up in RenderDoc. Like, as in, I feel like we're doing something wrong that's causing that to happen. Even though, you know, and that's probably why we're not seeing half of our images, but it's just very strange to me that Vulkan is not complaining. Yeah, it's still undefined. I mean, how is that possible? MIP. So it does, I mean, it does have 9 MIPs, which is slightly worrying because we're definitely not creating that many. Maybe we should just make sure that we only have 1 MIP when we create the texture, right? Image specification MIP count. So RT invalidate, and then we do set the MIP levels to MIPs. So let's just try to do MIP levels 1, because we're definitely not actually filling them with data. And what if they're all rendering at different resolutions, and that's why? It's trying to use data from MIP 2, but that's not, oh, there, we did it. Okay, I think that was the problem. We just didn't fill in the MIP generation. But we told Vulkan that data was present at those MIP levels. So let's just do a quick little RenderDoc capture, and hopefully it will not say undefined anymore. Okay, it still says undefined. Why? Okay, well, let's have a look at like this or whatever. So we have undefined image. Yeah, but now it's just MIP 0. So why is it still undefined? Again, MIP 0. So there's no MIPs anymore, you can see, because this is faded out. So it means that we've only got 1 MIP. But what about layers? I mean, surely layers is, specification layers is probably 1. We are telling it this stuff, so we probably should verify, maybe in debug, that this is all correct. So because we might be loading a lot of textures, I want to have a look at, like, say, editor resources. Let's have a look at like the other folder icon is a good one. Just want to have a look at the folder icon and see what it is. Yeah, solving some issues here, which I didn't expect to solve today, but it's important to get that stuff done, so I'm not too upset. Maybe the layout is wrong. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe, but usually Vulkan will yell at you for that in the validation, like, layer. So it's just very strange. I mean, what else could it be? No problems detected. Yeah, clearly. It's very strange that it's not happy with this. Like, what? But again, so like getting rid of the MIPs definitely solved that. Like now that it's only got one MIP, it is working. Like I can physically see it, but it's just weird that through RenderDoc it's still not there. Which I don't know, again. In my experience, like RenderDoc hasn't been the most reliable thing. Like I usually go to Nsight to verify things if they're not working in RenderDoc. But I feel like maybe they should work. So, okay, so if we just go to here, so now we're in load texture, obviously we're loading the folder icon. So we can have a look at this stuff. So I've set the MIP level now permanently, well, it's like I've explicitly set it to 1. Array size should be 1. Is render target is false, which is correct. Is UAV is false, which is correct. I don't, like, let's have a look. Is there other stuff in the texture description we should have set? Because this is what we've got so far. So the format seems correct. The dimension is correct. Is shader resources true, which is correct. Keep initial state false, initial state unknown. I don't think we need to set the initial state. I mean, we could be setting it later. So that all looks fine. And then we do set data, which goes to image set data. Have a look at generate MIPS as well. Which, yeah, we'll do all of this stuff, which seems to work. I guess, I don't know. And then MIP count is 10 apparently, so, but generate MIPS is, yeah, true, so it'll actually try and do this, but it doesn't do it. It doesn't do anything. Just goes through this a bunch of times and does nothing, because we don't support that anymore. We need to make that happen. So that shouldn't do anything. Like, that should be fine. I mean, the only thing I'm slightly wary of as well is just that, like, again, it shouldn't matter because now our images they don't have MIPS. So it should be okay. But the way that it set up that sampler is it did actually, so where's that in imgui renderer? It didn't limit anything, right? So we have like set, I mean, it doesn't actually let you set a max MIP. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't, because it sets it automatically. So if you go create sampler and we have a look at what it does in Vulkan, it sets the max LOD, which is the max MIP, to max. But again, we've only got 1, so it shouldn't be doing that, you know? So if I, like, I mean, if I override this and just set it to 0, I don't think that'll make a difference. Actually, let me do that in release. But yeah, I don't think that'll make a difference because even if we have the max set to like 1,000,000, but we only have 1 MIP, then that MIP is the max MIP. So I don't think it'll be a problem. But anyway, I guess we can continue on though, because obviously it works. Yeah, it looks nice now. But I'll quickly check inside here. Like, as in, everything looks great. It's just RenderDoc that obviously doesn't look great. Meaning that, like, in RenderDoc, but now we're rendering the folders and stuff. In RenderDoc, it says all of our images are undefined. So that's very strange, and I can't figure out why. The font texture, it actually is happy with. Now the font texture is unique, actually. Maybe this can be a clue. The font texture is unique because with the font, I think there's update font texture. It actually sets the permanent texture state after writing to shader resource and then does commit barriers and then starts with this. So that is technically a different workflow than what we do. And I'm just wondering if it's upset because we never set a permanent texture state, but we kind of can't because, well, we can, but we shouldn't, because it's not going to work everywhere in the engine, but it probably will work for the editor icons. They're not going to ever get updated. So what we could do is inside image set data, right? So if we have a look at this to compare it, so it begins tracking texture state, which for some reason here is set to common. I don't know why. Maybe we start with common. Unknown is what it says it starts with, but this says common. I wonder why, because we never set the initial state to common. So why does it think it's common? Maybe that's how you set it originally. But again, I don't think that would make a difference, would it? Okay, whatever. So then so this is interesting. So we're actually setting the texture state to copy destination, but then we're writing the texture, and I'm just now realizing that that doesn't actually, unless this does that, commit barriers is a thing that actually executes this. So this probably does nothing. And also they do write texture without doing that. So let's try this strategy. Like, we'll get rid of this because apparently we don't need it. For this, I'll just pass in common. And then I'm doing write texture, which is correct. Then we'll do set texture state to that. So we'll change it to set permanent texture state in a minute, but I'm just going to set texture state and commit barriers. And just with that change, I'm going to see if that does anything. So let's just have a look at RenderDoc. It's just peculiar that the font texture specifically is fine and everything else isn't. Like, why would that be? It's really got me interested. Okay, that's all still undefined. So let's just try something else now. Let's try, no, let's not close RenderDoc. Let's try to, instead of set texture state, I'm gonna do set permanent texture state, which is unfortunate because it means that I don't know if I can write texture again. I guess not. But we'll see if that does anything. So we get some errors, which is weird. Doesn't have the right state bits. But why? What's the difference? It should be shader resource. Let's have a look at this. We should probably set the debug name of these things as well. Oh, okay, this is different. So this might be okay because this is other textures. And I was doing copy to host buffer like this. Okay, I really don't care about that. Okay, it doesn't matter. Let's just try run it through RenderDoc. And we'll see if that makes any difference. I mean, it's weird because it should have done the image barrier and everything. But also Vulkan's not complaining about it. So I don't really know. Oh, look, it's here now. What? Why? So set permanent texture state is different to set texture state, meaning that like it for some reason results in in it like it must do something. I should read about this slightly. Not too much. Maybe state tracking is somehow disabled or something weird. Because obviously if it's permanent, then it just does it permanently. But if it's not permanent, then how does the state tracking work? And is that something I need to enable? Maybe that's the problem. Set enable automatic barriers. Command lists are initialized with automatic barriers enabled, and the state set using this method is kept when the command list is closed and reopened. So applications may disable automatic barriers in a command list upon creation. And for side mode, so to relative performance critical sections when running in this manual mode, auto system okay. Yeah, I really wonder if I have to do something like somehow during that command buffer, but that's a bit annoying. Oh, this is imgui renderer, okay. Because I open the command list here, do I need to like track stuff or not? Because I mean that would be weird, right? I might need to look at some examples or something. Where does this get created? Device create command list. And there's parameters. So that's probably where it has the, no, it doesn't even have it here. Okay. Odd. I guess like I'm just trying to figure out a way to make this whole permanent situation actually, because I don't really want to set the permanent texture state. I would like to just set texture state, but I don't know if that's something I can do. Like, as in, I feel like that might not be something I can do. That's probably why, because it did like nothing maybe. Because if I basically have to use begin tracking texture and then set texture state, which is what I used to do. But see, that's weird, because if I do set texture state and I set it to like shader resource, then it should, and I put into the command list and I execute the command list, then it should actually do that, as far as I'm aware. Because like commit barriers, I think does that. So let's have another test of this, I guess. Let's do, I guess we can go to image. I mean, I could just do this for the font texture, I guess. So instead of this, I can do set, let me just comment that out. We can do set texture state, and then I think I have to set it to all sub resources. So if I do set texture state, so it's not permanent, it's just set texture state and commit barriers. Like, let's have a look at what that does. You're still working on the sampler issue? No, we fixed that. It was, I mean, I don't know, fixed is a strong word. I don't know if I even want to say we fixed it, but we, it was because the sampler, NVRHI was putting into an offset of 128. So we had to basically change the binding of the sampler in the shader to be at 128 instead of 0. Because I guess that's how it decides to convert from HLSL to Vulkan or something, where in HLSL and DirectX you actually have like types of registers, like sampler and texture, instead of just a number. And so because of that, they can both be in like the same thing because they're in different types in HLSL and for DirectX, but in Vulkan they need some like compatibility design. Okay, so update font. So set texture state. Let's have a look at what that does. That probably just sets like a variable or something. So it does state tracker require texture state, which checks to see if there's permanent state, which it doesn't have. Does some sub-resource stuff. Get texture state tracking, which is interesting. Is entire texture transition necessary true. So okay, so it creates a texture barrier and it pushes it back, but it doesn't actually execute it, I'm guessing. So this is good. This is good. I expected basically this. And so now, when you do commit barriers, I'm expecting it to actually, you know, add a Vulkan image like barrier to the thing. So, and render pass. Oh, it does a render pass. Well, it's not going to have a render pass. Okay, it's just in case. And then synchronization 2 is true, so it will do that. Yeah, and there you go. Like, it's probably going to create image barrier. Before, so it used to be copy destination because we did the right texture. And after, it's now set to shader resource. And eShader read only optimal. So this is correct. So why the heck does this not work? So we have an image barrier now, which looks correct. This is strange, bro. And I'm guessing, I mean, it hasn't executed it yet, but I'm guessing it's going to. Look, pipeline barrier 2, there it is. Okay, that is really weird. So it's done it, because we've called commit barriers. So that's it. And obviously we close the command list, we execute the command list. Which that obviously runs. So what on earth? How does that not work? That's correct. And yet if we do that, instead of set permanent texture state, which I don't really know what the difference is, like as in, I didn't look at commit barriers to see what it does with the permanent texture state, or if permanent texture state just does it somehow. I don't know. It just says permanent transition is true and whatever. And then, because it still needs commit barriers, so I'm guessing that, does that do something extra? I don't know. Commit barriers. So if we look at this, does this even like care about, it just does get texture barriers from here. But I'm guessing it still has to do that, right? This is really weird. So they both call require texture state. That's both done, but then permanent, it just does this. And it just does permanent transition. So where does it do that? Like, what does it do with that? I don't know. It's very weird. Because by calling require texture state, which it does no matter what, right? Or does it? I mean, it should. Set texture state. Require texture state. Yeah. Yes. So set texture state calls require texture state. They both do require texture state. The difference is that I guess we'll do verify permanent resource state. Okay, it just does that, and then it does. Ah. So does that mean it doesn't go into that? But either way, this just creates a texture barrier for it. Anyway, I don't know. I'm actually really confused by this. Like, as in, I don't understand why it's not working in the way that I expect it to, because it is seemingly doing that barrier. I mean, we can have a look at render doc at what it... Nah, but it's not like it's doing it every frame. What if it has to do it every frame? No, that's weird. It shouldn't, because it's done the layout transition, that's it. That's so strange. Okay, so let's have a look at, I guess, the font texture. I don't know what the point of this is, though. Yeah, so I'm guessing this is the font, which is now undefined. Yeah, it is. Imgui font texture. So it's very weird because, again, everything renders correctly. Like, you look at the output. Well, no. Okay, in render doc, it appears to not render correctly, but it does render correctly in the UI. I don't know why render doc's having trouble with it. But anyway, but the input is undefined, apparently, which kind of tells me that the layout is undefined. But it's like I did transition it to shader resource, which is like shader read only optimal or whatever. Like, I did that. Like, I'm pretty sure I watched it happen. So why is it, does something else change the texture state? Because I didn't do it as a permanent transition, I just did it as a transition. So what's the difference? It's just the difference is you can only do this permanent thing once apparently, and then it's not tracked. I guess something here is probably changing it again. It's got to be that. I mean, commit barriers seems to be the only thing that has the power to do that, though. I mean, maybe not, but if we have a look at commit barriers internal, like, does that run every frame? Yeah, it does. Oh, because we do clear texture. That's for the color attachment. Yeah, clear texture. Clear texture does that. Okay, whatever. That doesn't matter. What does actually happen here? Clear color attachment. But that's it, I think. Literally once per frame. Oh no, here is right buffer. Set graphic state. So we, let me get rid of this, this is very annoying. So when we render imgui and we do set graphic state, it also does a commit barriers, which goes through and, but this is not going to have any, is it? Okay, it is. Texture states. There are two texture states. imgui font texture. So what? It keeps it there. And what does it do? What the heck? This is weird. I mean, it makes sense, but okay, so I guess it keeps doing it every frame. But what's the before layout? Undefined. But it's not undefined. Doesn't it stay at that layout? This is weird. It still thinks it's at copy destination and it's changing it. Oh no, this is color attachment optimal. So this must be the other one. That's weird. So it's basically got two, and for the font texture, it's trying to transition it from undefined to read only optimal. But why is it doing that? It's already done that. Right? Let me rerun this in debug. This is strange. I think this is strange. Let's get this open. Okay, so this is a swap train image, and this is the imgui font texture. So before and after. Before, it just says unknown, and after, it says shader resource. So I'm not really sure how this is possible, because unless something puts it back into like unknown or something, it's basically trying to transition from unknown or undefined to a layout, well, every frame. But it's already done that. Keep initial state should not be set to true. What if that somehow, no, that can't be the case because this is for the font texture which we're creating here. Obviously that doesn't have keep initial state. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's set to false. I thought maybe I overrode it and set it to true. Because this would make sense. If keep initial state was somehow on, then that means that at the end, it transitions back into undefined. And then obviously that would require it to be transitioned back into whatever you want when it actually, like on the command list open, which is what happens here. But clearly it's not actually set to, it's set to keep initial state is set to false. So I'm just wondering why, if it gets transitioned to shader resource, how on earth it ends up continually being transitioned from undefined to something else every frame. Like, that's super weird. And the state tracker, it's owned by the command list. Oh, that's right. Okay, so this command list, right? That's the other issue. This command list, even though we execute it, it still has this. But we set, it's so weird. You know what I think the issue is? I think that if you use texture state, I feel like this is, I guess it thinks it's a transient state that needs to be reset at every command buffer. So I feel like the way you would kind of fix that is you set it there, and then I guess because it's still the same command list, it would expect you when you open to basically be like, hey, but then again, it shouldn't, because why would I begin tracking again? I'm already tracking that texture state. And I've already set it. So what on earth? That doesn't make sense. Because I thought maybe like, if you don't set it permanently, it expects you to update it. So you'd set it to like shader, you know, resource here. But that doesn't make sense because I'm already tracking that texture state in the same command list. Because that doesn't quite make sense. It's not complaining about anything though. But again, I'm expecting that it probably is still doing this. Two texture states. From copy destination to render target. Is that the right one? What? So that's the swap chain image. Oh. What? It's just doing the swap chain image now. But didn't it say there were two? I mean, that's weird. Yeah, it's just one. So I think that actually kind of fixed it by updating the tracking to be like, no, it's already in the right thing. Because I'm guessing, like, again, they put it kind of weirdly, but I'm guessing that by doing that, that's kind of what this manual mode is. When you do set texture state, that's like the manual mode. All it does is it just, like, it doesn't keep track of anything, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it's just weird. It's weird. It's still, I think it's weird. I'm just trying to make sense of it. So if I now try to run this for RenderDoc, I'm just wondering if I'll get undefined now. Because I'm telling it, now it's not, now I can see that it's not doing transition every frame. So I'm wondering whether or not that means that it's like, you know. So yeah, I think it's working. So yeah, this is the imgui font texture, and you can see that it's not undefined. So basically, that means that what it wants is that, it's so weird. That means that if you use non-permanent states, right? So I'm not doing set permanent texture state. I'm just doing set texture state. Then even though I commit barriers, which means that it actually, when I execute the command list after commit barriers, it actually does insert an image barrier and does the layout transition then and there. If I don't then tell it that new state every single time I reopen the command list, then it's going to try and do that transition over and over again. So obviously in this case, we don't need to do that. Like, we would just set the permanent texture state and then that's solved. But it's just very weird to me personally that it does that. It would mean that every time I render something in a command list, I basically have to map out all the existing texture state, all the existing resource states, even though it already, like, it doesn't really need them. Otherwise it will still doing, otherwise it will still keep doing transitions. But that doesn't even make sense, because here it makes sense because the command list is the same and I'm kind of reusing it. I create it once and that's it. But inside image, for example, when I do this command list, I create a new command list like for every single image. I mean, it reuses it from the pool or whatever, but still I have a new command list per image. So when I do set data, you can see it's doing device create command list. So then this clearly should not apply to a different command list that's using that to render it, because the state tracker is owned by the command list. So I'm very confused as to why this is a problem. But yeah, if I set this as a permanent texture state now, then it kind of works. But my worry is that what about for textures that aren't permanent? So for example, and for buffers and stuff like that. I mean, okay, actually, how does the imgui renderer deal with buffers? Because the buffers, the vertex buffers and index buffers are updated often. So what does it do in terms of states for them? Or is that different? I mean, don't know why it would be. What is it? Update geometry. So reallocate buffer, for example, doesn't do anything to do with buffer transitions. Volatiles marked as false. But it does set an initial state. But yeah, it sets the initial state to be either an index buffer or a vertex buffer. And keep initial state is true. Interesting. Maybe this automates it, because it says that you have to transition back to an index buffer, or that's the initial state. And then when I do update geometry, maybe right buffer will automatically transition it to something else. So right buffer will require buffer state copy destination, which will add that to the state tracker. But then I guess it will transition it back to the initial state instead of setting it manually. That's really interesting. Okay, so let's try that then. Why don't we try that? So again, I'm just purely curious. I just want to get to the bottom of this state tracking because it's obviously going to be very important going forward. Let's try that with the font texture. Let's do this. Let's set the keep initial state to true, and then we're going to set the initial state to resource states shader resource, right? It's because that's kind of what we want it to end up as. And then honestly, I don't know if I need to do anything here. I think I can just do this. I can just open the command list, write the texture, because that will change it to copy destination, which is like the transfer destination. And then I guess I don't need commit barriers, or do I anyway? I don't think so though, because in update geometry, it didn't have that. So let's try that. I don't know what's gonna happen. We'll run it first, and then is permanent state device wide then? I think it just adds it to the actual resource. So I'm assuming so. Okay, so we've run it. I don't see any errors. Let's try run it through RenderDoc and see if our font texture is undefined or not. There you go, it's not. So that's totally valid then. You can just set... So the reason why I like this is because note, we're never setting a permanent texture state. So what this means is we can actually keep writing every frame if we want to. So I guess that's what you would do. You would set keep initial state to true, you'd set your initial state to what you actually want it to be at when you render, and then you can use functions like write texture to update it, and that's it. So let's go and test that out with the rest of the images, because that will actually work quite well, I think. So if we basically set texture description, so we'll do keep initial state true, and then the thing is, it's going to depend on what the final thing is. But, and look, that's kind of what I tried to do here. It's just I tried to set initial state to 3 things, but you don't have to. So you just kind of have to set it to this. So let me actually set it here. What's wrong with you? Okay. Because I don't think transfer matters, but because transfer now is always kind of true, I think, unless you set permanent state. Yeah, if you don't transfer, then I guess you can set permanent state, but whatever. If usage is texture, then we're going to set it to shader resource, and we're going to keep initial state true. And so that should mean that in set data, I now don't need to begin tracking texture state. And I don't need to set the permanent texture state. This is irrelevant because it's not used at the moment, and I don't need to commit barriers. I just do my write texture in a command list, and that is it. So let's run that, see if we get any errors, and if we don't, we're gonna do it through RenderDoc and have a look. GitLab or GitHub? I use GitHub. I've gone between the two, but I prefer GitHub these days. Okay, so that obviously works, and we don't have any, nothing's complaining about anything. So let's launch it through RenderDoc, and I'm just going to verify that our images are present and not undefined. Yep. I think they're good. And if we look at this, we can see everything and it's not messed up. Awesome. So that's done then. Okay, very weird. So we don't need any of this. It's just as simple as that. And then this, I don't know, we don't really need that. In fact, we can probably just set that immediately. I don't know, I'll leave it here for now, but we don't actually read it from this. It kind of, NVRHI manages the state for us. So that's why we can probably get rid of this, I guess. I don't know. We'll make sure everything properly works first before we start deleting more things. I'd like to set is there a way, can we set a debug name? We can. Let's set the debug name. We should probably only do that for non-distribution builds, but anyway, we'll do, I think, specification.debug name, right? So this will just help a lot. Even though I don't actually know if we make texture, right, then what is it? It probably doesn't set the debug name. So we'll just make sure we do that. And then if we look at like editor resources and load texture, we can probably just make sure that specification debug name is name. Cool. So we can actually, unless it does that though. Oh, it does set the name. Okay, well, yeah, let's have a look at this. This is just a little subtle thing. Oh, and that's the other thing I wanted to test. So for something like this, we actually don't need the initial state, and we can in fact set the permanent texture state to shader resource and commit barriers. I don't know. I think the difference here is that it's actually going to permanently somehow. I don't know. Maybe this makes more sense with DirectX than Vulkan, but I wanted to, yeah, make sure that this works, because it's just like, I don't want to set all of our textures ever to be permanent, because we might want to update them, but for this explicit font texture, it clearly can be, because it's, I don't know, for whatever reason, doesn't flow through our texture class yet. So if we launch this now again, and then let's do a capture, and I'm just going to make sure that everything works, including the font texture. So here's the font texture, looks correct, and obviously everything's rendering here correctly. And if we have a look at other textures, oh, here's our beautiful line. Yeah, that should be fine. And not only that, but now it actually has the debug name here. So you can see it's the sound config file icon. So we now have proper names set, which is awesome. You can see this one's called folder icon. So that's nice. I wanted that. Cool. Yeah, pretty good. So we've resolved that. That's a huge win today, actually, even though I wasn't. If you go back to the start of the stream, I was like, what? I was just explaining the problem, and I was like, we're going to move on, but we ended up fixing it, which is pretty good, actually, because I'd rather not come back to this later. This all still works, which is good. Yeah, everything, whoa. That looks wrong. Oh, okay, I was going to say everything works, but not quite, because we're not getting any text here. I mean, this icon looks very weird, as if that's the right icon. What else should we check? And this isn't showing up. Like, there should be a cog here that kind of looks like this. So there are still some weird things going on. Yeah, this is like misaligned. This could be due to new imgui though, by the way, to be fair. Rather than rendering, or like, I mean, I'm probably isn't due to rendering, because remember we updated our imgui version, and that definitely would have destroyed some things probably. Also, we have a little bit of an issue here where the Hazel green thing extends. I mean, it looks like it extends past the border. It doesn't, because you can see that. I mean, it blends a little bit with that, but it kind of makes it look from a distance as if it is sharp, so we should probably fade that out or something. I don't know, because this looks nice, for example, on this side. Anyway, yeah, we need to make sure that we fix all of this. Like, this is weird, the text not showing up here, for example. But anyway, regardless, I think I'll do a commit now. So what we ended up doing, I mean, we did change this, which I guess is important. We can, I'll keep that. Yeah, the MIPS. The MIPS was a big thing. We need to make sure that we either generate MIPS or we don't use MIPS, or I don't know what. But this is also important, this stuff, and we cleaned that up, which is good. Under the debug name, I don't think there's any changes there. Oh yeah, let's revert our whole sound config situation. Goodbye line. The GLSL, like, I'll keep it, but we don't really need it. And then, oh, we had to do that as well. So we got, like, yeah, this is just like imgui. Well, I'll just say UI fixes. And better texture, state, trends, state management. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. So that's pushed. So Yeah. Since we're on an imgui roll, and I don't think it's getting kind of late, so I don't want to start a whole new project, we should have a look at that text situation. So content browser panel, I think renders an item. It might be actually content browser item. So render items goes through item on render begin, render end. I'm guessing there's like some, that's just context, that's just behavior. Item on render. So this obviously is gonna have the text rendering for the name, and it does not. So there's a thumbnail. Outline. Where's the actual name? So there's this whole like, let's see if it has thumbnail, else we just draw the icon. Set display name from file name, so display name. So display name is basically what we're supposed to render eventually. Here it is, text. So let's just have a, I don't know, let's put a breakpoint there, have a look maybe. A little bit weird. So animation is the name. What's the text width? Yeah, I'm gonna have to unfortunately switch to debug. Okay, 59 is the text width, animation is the text name. Now, I'm wondering, like, obviously this doesn't end up making it to the place it's supposed to be in. And it does use the stack and like the stack layout stuff. So I'm wondering if that is somehow different or what's the matter with that. Oh wait, well that actually renders correctly. That's animation is a folder, and that seems to render correctly. What doesn't is, so we can have a look at the other branch of Hazel. So we can have a look at what we expect to see here, right? So basically these two, you can see, and they still actually look better here, surprisingly. Even though this is still, you know what? It's probably in the MIPS. I think it's rendering different MIPS. So it's okay. We'll get to that. We'll get to MIPS later. But anyway, you can see this is supposed to say non-SG config and soundcraft config, whereas here we've got nothing. And also this sound config label seems like a bit cut off, whereas here it's not. So, but the folder, you know, looks the same, I think. So I'm pretty, like, the folder's fine. It's just the actual assets. So you can see they're all labeled here, and then here none of them are. So specifically with them. So let's go to this directory maybe because it's only got assets. And if we have a look at this, so that's for directory. So there's actually something different. So I'm guessing this is what gets hit, right? So it's got the text there. It doesn't seem to have set next item width though, for whatever reason. Does it need it? Like, why would you do it here and not here? I mean, we can have a look at what happens with this and why it doesn't render. I mean, I don't know, like it's probably rendering somewhere, right? Text position. So cursor position X 709 and 812. That looks like it should be somewhere on the screen. Wrap enabled true. Text size gets calculated, seems good. Bounding box seems plausible. Render text wrapped. Huh, and it does add it to the draw list. Interesting. Well, I'm out of ideas. I mean, I obviously don't know if it's in the right place. And the fact that it doesn't show up is concerning. Push text wrap position. Get cursor X plus. So 120 is how much it gives it, which seems kind of correct, to be honest. But we just don't see it for some reason. Unless, like, it's possible something renders over the top of it. And that obviously gets rendered. I mean, it does suspend layout, which the other ones don't do. But I don't think that should obviously work. That work, like begin horizontal works. That's very strange. Because obviously this is the same. Content browser item is exactly the same in the other branch. I mean, we have obviously we have a different version of imgui and everything, so it's a bit like, you know, who knows? Who knows what's really going on? Huh. Checking around dock with wireframe if there is actual font geometry. I'm sure there is. I'm sure it's just in the wrong place or something. I've still got random dock open. So that is the image, and then the next one is the sound config. Oh. Well, yeah, I mean, this is the sound config, right? Sound config. So it looks like there's no draw call even for it. Unless it was supposed to be in that draw call, but there's no geometry for it. And what's this? That's the next icon. Huh, so yeah, it doesn't get drawn. I guess it gets culled or something. This is 66 indices. And this is like probably the sound config, yeah. And before that, it draws that. So yeah, where does it draw? And in the mesh viewer, it's just got sound config. Huh. That's weird. So it must like, yeah, it must cull that or something. Which again means it's probably in the wrong place. Okay, well, one way we could check is, we're still running, right? We're suspended somewhere. So if we have a look at this, for example, right? So if I go into here, I can have a look at where in the window it thinks it's drawing it. So if we go into, basically, if we go down to, where does it render it? Render text wrapped. And then add text, right? So the position is 851, 812. Just remember that. I can probably pin it. 851, 812. So now we're gonna go into here, which is the label skeleton, which we know it actually draws. So if I step into that, we go into, I'm expecting it to go into render text wrapped. Then we can have a look at, I changed it. So 920 by 856. And what was the other one? 812. Anyway, they look they look correct. Right? Like it looks like the position looks correct is my point. I don't know. Obviously there could be other things that clip it. But it looks like they both get added to the draw list. So if we try again with display name is at 993 now, 8 to 12, 993, 8 to 12. And then text unformatted is 1056, and which should be an 856. So they seem correct, honestly. So it's definitely a mystery. And then as for other things, right? So, okay, well, I mean, we could try do like text unformatted, for example. And there's also this push text wrap position, which we're not doing here. So we could try change that as well. So we're going to simplify it a little bit. And see what happens. So that doesn't work, and then we'll try to not push text wrap position. Layout wise, like we seem to be in the right place, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, no, that's upset because of like pop text wrap position. But yeah, we didn't see it, so very strange. Still wrong. Okay, so shall we try play with the layout next then? So begin vertical is fine, that applies to both. Begin horizontal, same situation, except then we have a spring instead of suspend layout. That's it, and then we do end horizontal. So let's just try this. Maybe it is something to do with the layout. Okay, so yeah, we got some text now, right? Now it's probably not correct. It's not bad. It's a little too far, especially here, too far to the left, to the right. It's at the right vertical position though. Okay, so looks like it was this layout stuff. So I wonder why that changed. I mean, obviously we changed. I can add a spring afterwards. I mean, they do. That's a, I don't know. Resume layout. We need to get rid of. Anyway, I'm probably not going to mess around with layout stuff now. Yeah, so that just centers it. Because we got a spring either side. Probably not what we want. Probably want it to be more left aligned. Bring this back, and it was just text. I don't know if there's a difference though. I could do something like that. I mean, I probably want it to not be a spring. I probably want it to just be a fixed offset, I imagine. I mean, that's kind of what we did here, right? And that looks better, I think. So then we'll just do a... so begin horizontal, float a line. What does that do? Yeah, I don't know if padding will apply. So if I don't put a spring, I guess I don't need a spring on the other side. Whatever. Let's have a look at this. This is probably going to be weird. It's actually not weird. That's actually pretty good. All right, and do I need a spring on the other side? I feel like I don't. But we'll see. Maybe that's the thing that's keeping it. No, probably not. I don't know. Yeah, I do. Otherwise it's kind of centered or something weird. Didn't expect that, to be honest. Okay, so spring on the other side. I guess for now we'll get rid of this. I've always got it in Git if I need it, but it's kind of simplifying it a bit, which is good. And I think it's the same result. I think. So if we just have a look at the Hazels. So this and this should look the same. The actual label, not the G being cut off for whatever reason. Because it's not cut off here. But it is cut off here. But the actual name looks the same. And if I go into like animation, which has a bunch of strings to look at, then they do look good. How about that size? Yeah, they look the same. So there you go. Done. Ported. Okay, yeah, so this still breaks, this whole animation. You can see it looks ridiculous. Whereas it kind of works in that one. Also, the MIPs make it look a lot better. As you can see. But cool. We're making some progress. All right, I think I'm gonna wrap it up for tonight. I'll do a commit. Literally, I just got rid of these 3 things and that fixed it. That's hilarious. I need to do this though. Why is it not warning me about not popping the text wrap position? Just verify that actually works. I guess I should do it here. I think I screwed that up. Okay, yep. That's good. So just removing those 2. That's it. Cool. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I'm uploading the streams like to Cherno Unplugged, which is my like live stream kind of chill channel. So if you want to follow along with that, you can in case you miss streams. And I'm using, I've started using Claude AI to generate like summaries of streams from the transcript, which is really cool because it means that now if in the description, like there's an actual outline of what goes on like in this, like what happens in the stream, which is really cool. And it's quite detailed. Like, let me show you because I think it's pretty cool. Let me see when it loads. So like, for example, this is like the latest live stream. I need to upload more. I'm gonna publish more like from tonight onwards, but you can see that like, there's like a stream summary of, and like timestamps and everything. And it literally is like goes through everything that I go through. And obviously I've read through the summary to make sure it's correct, but it's done a really good job. So I'm quite impressed with it. And obviously if it's like a, this is like a 4-hour live stream. So being able to see this is a little bit iffy with timestamps. That's the one thing I found. So the times don't, like they're not 100%. You can see they're all at 0, for example, even though the transcript does have valid timestamps for everything I say, obviously, because it's a transcript. It's like a subtitle file. But yeah, weird. But anyway, everything else, it worked really well with. And you can see it even like formats names of things correctly. And it gets my name right. So that's good. So yeah, good to follow along with if you want to follow along with live streams and you don't catch all of them. And you can kind of pick and choose bits you're interested in. And I also want to kind of go through, and see if I can make some like YouTube shorts out of interesting moments on stream and stuff like that. But otherwise, Hazel, you can obviously support on patreon.com/thecherno and get access to everything. I've just pushed all the work I've done today as well, so you can tag along with that if you want. And yeah, next time I'll be streaming will be Monday evening my time. Keep an eye on the Twitch schedule to see when it is in your time zone. And yeah, that's it. See you guys later. Have a good weekend and happy programming. I don't know. Goodbye.